Now, when I think of telling our stories, when I think of testimonies, I automatically think of my best buddy and ministry partner, Lee Strobel. You probably know of Lee through his books, The Case for Christ. There was a movie, The Case for Christ, The Case for Faith, and many other great books that Lee has written. But if you ever read Lee's stuff, or if you ever hear him speak, you know his natural style, the thing he reverts to over and over is, when I was an atheist, here's what I thought.
I remember one of the first times I ever used the story sharing style was when the associate pastor of our church said he was going to be interviewed by a newspaper reporter for an article about the church, and he was nervous about it. And because I had a journalism background, he asked me to sit in on the interview. So I'm sitting in on the interview, listening to things going on, and all of a sudden, the reporter turns suddenly in his chair and he looks at me and he says, "So what's your story?" And so I had an opportunity to use my story sharing style and to tell him my story of my spiritual journey. And sure enough, when the article about the church was printed in the newspaper, there was a sidebar, an accompanying article telling my story. And so I got the opportunity to amplify it to thousands of people that way. Well, I remember years after I left the Chicago Tribune and became a pastor at a church, I was downtown Chicago at the federal courthouse where I used to hang out and cover all the major trials. And the elevator doors opened up, and there, standing in the corridor, was a former competitor of mine from another news organization. You know, one of these tough Chicago reporters. You know, he's got the cigar, but he didn't light it, just gnaws on it. And he saw me and he said, "Strobel, how the blank are you, you son of a blankety blank?" I said, "I'm doing great." He said, "I haven't seen you in years. You still a reporter for that blankety blankety Chicago Tribune, that blankety blankety piece of blankety blank?" I said, "Well, actually, John, I've had a big change in my life. I've become a Christian and I'm a pastor now." And it's like the cigar almost fell out of his mouth. All he could say was, "Well, I'll be damned." And I said to him, "Well, John, you don't have to be." And God gave me an opportunity to share the gospel with them. I think some people think, well, golly, my story isn't dramatic enough. I was never an axe murderer. I was never an atheist or whatever it was that had this dramatic conversion. And I want to say, you know what? The percentage of Americans who are atheists is about 5%. Not that many people. My wife used to say, well, golly, when I was little, I wanted to know about God and I was curious about God. But, later when I learned about him, I responded to it and received Jesus. And that's kind of a simple story, she said. And she was a little embarrassed that it wasn't dramatic. And I said, no, honey, you will relate to more people who are just spiritually confused. They're not atheists. They're not hardened against the faith. They're not living a drunken, immoral life like I was. They're people like you, nice folks that want to know about God and are maybe just kind of wandering in their spiritual life. So don't think if you don't have some dramatic story that God won't use it. I believe he will, and I've seen it, especially in Leslie's case, time after time.